All right, friends, we are back. Myself and my son Jared. Now, there is mother came up with a name for our book club.
I wasn't there.
All right, well, we have a book club, and it's pretty incredible. So incredible that the name is just beyond us. And today we're going to jump right in. We've been out of pocket. Sorry, we've missed you guys. We've been on the road a lot. We were up in Wisconsin at an amazing men's advance out in North Carolina. Today we're going to talk about how to make an amazing book list. 50 books. How long should it take you to read 50 books? Would a year sounds too, is that too extreme to say read 50 books in a year? That's
just a little, yeah.
Okay, a little. Okay. 2 years isn't bad, though. 2 years is doable. Every 2 weeks?
I'll give you 3.
Roughly 3. Okay, well, this could be a high school curriculum then. Guys, the right 50 books can change life. And just to make education simple, if you're like, man, I just want a simple way to educate my kids, I would say give them the right books. Would you agree with that? That if you give the right 50 books, you can have a good education?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so here are the rules. Now, I've been working on this for over 6 months. Here are the rules. 15 classics, 10 books on history, 10 works of theology, 10 books on thinking, which can be all kinds of stuff. We'll talk about that. And then 5 biographies. We might go over our normal 20 minutes, but we're going to have a lot of fun. Try to not make them all thick books. Get some good thin books in there. Rules, you can do audiobooks. You can do some books abridged. I think especially with the classics, it's okay. There are some people that would crucify me for that, but it is okay in my mind. Like, for instance, I want my children to read the full version of Les Miserables, but when it comes to Gulliver's Travels, I'm okay with abridged. Also, in each of these book categories, no doubling of authors. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You can't have the same author twice in each category. And you can also offer double options occasionally. And I'm going to explain that. There's some places where I have 2 books that are kind of the same kind of book, and you choose one. Okay, so let's jump in. 15 classics, by the way, on our YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and actually list it out. It's kind of cheating, though. You should just be taking notes the whole time, but I'll list it out for you. All right, here we go. Now, Jared hasn't seen this list in a long time. It's changed. And so I've got some questions for him. He is a better reader than I am, and also just want his feedback on all. Okay, number 1, classic book, The Hobbit. What do you think?
It's a classic.
It's a classic. It's good. Everyone should read The Hobbit.
Everyone should read The Hobbit.
Okay. So Hobbit, and I would say a great introductory book on classical literature, classical fiction. Fiction is where it's at, by the way. Fiction and fantasy is where it's at. All the early books, all of the great classics from Iliad to Beowulf to Narnia to Lord of the Rings are all fantasy books and fiction. Some of them historical fiction. All right, number 2, Jane Eyre. Have you read Jane Eyre?
I've not read Jane Eyre.
Okay, well, it's good. I have read Jane Eyre. I think all of these books on here, one of the 2 of us have read. So number 2, Jane Eyre. Number 3, Hamlet, because you need to have Shakespeare in there. How many of his books have you read? Have you read any of his books?
Not the full versions, no.
No, but you've read abridged or graphic novels of many. Hamlet, we actually just finished an abridged. Oh, man, I wish I had this book. My friend Rachel gave it to our family. I don't know the author, but it's an abridged version. It's like 20 Shakespeare stories, and all about 20-minute reads each. We just did Hamlet. It was fun. All right, any comments on Shakespeare? Would you encourage Shakespeare to be on the list?
He's good.
Okay.
He's good, yeah.
Next, we have the Iliad. Okay, Iliad. I just listened to the audiobook to North Carolina about a week and a half ago. Iliad is awesome. I've fallen in love with it more than ever before. It is, in my mind, so I'm a big Tolkien fan. I would say Homer was the Tolkien of the ancient Greeks. Is that fair?
That's fair.
The only difference is his stuff was historical fiction, whereas Tolkien, that's to be debated. Okay, next I've got a dual one. Okay, a dual one. This is number 5. The Aeneid / the Divine Comedy. Pick one. So right there in 4 and 5, we have the Iliad, Aeneid, Divine Comedy. Here's my first question for you, sir. Why should we read classics from the ancient world? Some people would say, oh, those are written by pagans. Actually, the Divine Comedy was not written by a pagan.
This is true.
The Aeneid, the Iliad, the Odyssey, those were written by pagans. Why should we read it? Would you recommend the Greek and Roman classics, and if so, why?
Yes, I would. The reason being, all stories share similar values. All authors, all stories share similar values teach similar lessons. And so, like, is it instructional in an intellectual sense to read the Iliad or Aeneid? No. You're not going to pull, like, theological truths from that or just, like, straight knowledge, but it's a story. You can take analogies from it, metaphors. You can use it to prove a point in a conversation with somebody. So it's just more a general building of our knowledge of what Western civilization is built on, what the foundation is.
Yeah, all great, well, not all, but many great thinkers throughout history, Christian thinkers, have pulled from those classics. For sure. Yeah, so awesome. Yeah, and we can plunder the Egyptians, so to speak. We can redeem literature. There's great truth. I mean, you said there's no theology there, but in one sense, there are great principles there. Of course. Like courage, manliness, things like that. For sure. All right, moving on. Next we have, another double option, 1984. Have you read 1984? You have not read 1984.
I started it.
Okay. So I've read it, Isaiah's read it, 1984, but that's rated R. A substitute would be Animal Farm. Same authors, right? Mm-hmm. Those are both, yeah. Now, have you read Animal Farm?
I've not read Animal Farm.
Okay. So would recommend those allegories. Well, Animal Farm, the allegory, 1984 kind of dystopian literature, would recommend that. Gets you thinking. And that's where there's a lot of expressions like big brother, doublethink that people use. And so you need to have a context if you're going to be in these conversations. Okay, number 7, Pride and Prejudice. Have you read that? Have you read any of Austen's?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've read multiple of her works.
Now, our family expert is Isaiah. He's read, I think, every Austen book multiple times. And by the way, that's manly, just so you know. All right, I had to throw in Dickens, so I put in Oliver Twist. Is that fair? Have you read any of his other books that you'd recommend over Twist? Tale of Two Cities?
No, the only other one I read was... Oh, I'm forgetting. I could tell the story, but I'm forgetting the name.
Didn't he write Christmas Carol? Mm-hmm. That's Dickens, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I've read one of his. Yeah, Christmas Carol is good. So sometimes on a book list you can have just an author. Say, okay, read something by Dickens. All right, next, number 9. This is also rated M for maturity. Brave New World. Have you read Brave New World?
I have.
Okay. Would you recommend it?
It's very good.
Yeah. Brave New World is good. You know what's crazy about 1984 and Brave New World? If I'm not mistaken, they were written by socialists. Like, they were written by people who we wouldn't consider. But they were at a time where socialism, like, now we look back seeing the results of communism and socialism in the 20th century. But isn't that interesting? Like, it's not hardcore Christian conservatives writing these. It's socialists almost condemning the ultimate outcome of the philosophies they embraced.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also two opposite perspectives. It's two opposite futures.
That's true.
1984 and Brave New World.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Great to compare and contrast. So you could have your teenage children read those books and write a paper on it. Hey, scoot up a little bit. I'm afraid you're too far away from the mic. Okay, or over.
Scoot up.
Okay. Hey, that's closer. Okay,
geometrically,
it's
closer to the mic.
All right. Let's go. Okay, number 10. We've got another option: Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, or Frankenstein. Now, have you read either of those?
I've read Frankenstein.
I
listened to it. It was very, very good.
Yes. So I used to be against those because I'm against horror, because I think horror is evil. Like, we don't watch horror films in our family, and I encourage my children, hey, these are, like, never watch a horror film. And even though people will say that Frankenstein was what's the word?
It started the horror genre.
Yeah, it started the horror genre. I wouldn't consider it horror like modern horror.
Well, it depends on how you define it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the story of a monster with a brain killing people.
That does sound, when you put it that way, but I think it's classical literature that's worth reading. Dracula what's cool about it is the monster is the most intelligent person in the story, instead of the monster being just this mindless zombie.
Yeah.
Like he's usually portrayed.
It's like Joker being the smartest villains, being a homicidal maniac.
Of course you bring this back to Batman. Yeah, of course always. You do. Okay. Now, Dracula, I would say, and if you disagree, read it and prove me wrong, I thought it was extremely Christian. Now, you haven't read it yet.
I have not read it.
Dude, it's really cool because it's a band of men, I would say men with a Christian worldview, of course, fighting evil, invoking the scriptures and talking about Christ. And I thought it was really good, really cool. All right. Is this fun?
Mm-hmm.
Having fun? Yeah.
No.
Okay. Moving along, we have, what used to be, what was the first classic for young men to read? Like in the 1950s. The introductory, you have a 10-year-old, 12-year-old boy, he wants to be a man.
He's going to read Odysseus.
Okay, true. I was thinking Treasure Island.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Treasure Island. So like the intro, which Treasure Island was published, late 1800s maybe?
Probably, yeah, 1890s.
Treasure Island is an incredible book. I would not read the abridged. I would read the whole thing. Read it as a read aloud to your family. It is awesome. Young boys and girls love it, and it's all about adventure. All right, next we have a category. This is number 12 in classics, Lamplighter books. Lamplighter books. Now you read, I would say the king of Lamplighter books, which is Ishmael.
Ishmael is very good.
Okay. That is like the graduating. If you want to graduate from Lamplighter books, especially for young men, because it's all about manly character, read Ishmael. My favorite is Shipwrecked. Do you know that story? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Shipwrecked. So Lamplighter books are incredible. Get them, read them to your children. All right, next we've got just a short and sweet fun one, War of the Worlds. I've read that. Have you read that?
Yeah, I have.
What's cool about War of the Worlds is because of films, people think it takes place like in the World War II era. It's actually late 1800s, so they're fighting these aliens with cannons and maybe rifles, but more musket.
No, it would have been rifles, late 1800s.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, rifles were.
Yeah, because the rifles really, the great date to remember the transition of the rifle would have been the Civil War, right?
Civil War was the great transition. No. Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right, we got two left in this genre. Next, Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe was the first English novel ever produced, and now modern English. Otherwise, it'd be Beowulf. And which Beowulf is not on this list. Shame on me. I'm breaking the rules. I'm adding another one. Beowulf. Trivia: Tolkien made Beowulf very popular. Anyhow, many people think they know the story of Robinson Crusoe because they've read an abridged version. In the full version, he finds a Bible, he comes to Christ, he starts worshiping on the Lord's Day. It's an incredible, epic Christian adventure.
Yeah.
All right, next, we've got two options, Count of Monte Cristo / Les Miserables. You've read both. If you could only recommend one.
It would, as controversial as it is, it'd be the Count of Monte Cristo.
Count of Monte Cristo.
Count of Monte Cristo, in my opinions.
Awesome.
Better.
I would recommend Les Mis, but I haven't read all of Count, so Jared's opinion goes forth. Okay, so classics. Classics are important. Many people dismiss classics. I think we live in an age where people are more pulled maybe to nonfiction, to just facts, but the best communication, I think, is fiction. Fiction's huge. Classics are good.
Stories are powerful.
Stories are powerful, yeah. All right, let's move on to history. All right, history number 16. Well, I'll just start over the list. Number 1 in history, Heroes Then and Now by YWAM.
It's a good series.
Which one's your favorite, or one you'd recommend off the top?
They're all really good. The C.S. Lewis one was probably my favorite.
C.S. Lewis, yeah, it's good. All right, Stalin by Albert Marin.
It's a good book.
And I would just put Albert Marin, which I sent him an email about 3 days ago saying, well, it goes to his agent saying, hey, please tell Albert, he's like 90, that my family, he's our favorite modern historian author. And I asked him if he could write a foreword for one of my books, Christianity and Government. But then after I sent it, I did some research. I think he's Jewish. So he declined. But it's probably because it's not a popular book. But I'm sure his writing has a lot of Christian elements. So what's how many Albert Marin books have you read? Do you know?
2.
Which 2? That's it? Which ones?
I think Hitler and Stalin.
Hitler and Stalin. Good?
I don't know if I might have just read Stalin.
Well, Stalin's good.
Stalin was good.
Stalin. Everyone needs to read
good.
Stalin. He's published 48. I think it's 48 books.
Wow.
All on history. Almost all on history, with the exception of 1 or 2. All right, next, number 18, Winston Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples. You've read all of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Highly recommended?
Highly recommended. It's very long. It's 4 volumes. It's huge, but it's very, very good.
So then that one short one we have, is that an abridged version then?
Oh, yes.
So maybe just do the abridged?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna wimp out,
if you're a Sally, you can do the abridged. Make sure you project it. I don't know if this mic's picking you up.
If you want the whole history of the English-speaking people, you got to read the whole thing.
Yeah, you got to read the whole thing. Why would you jip Churchill?
Yeah,
dude, he saved the world and wrote history books.
Wrote history.
Yeah.
Won a Nobel Prize for it. I'm pretty sure.
All right, I've got Church History by Everett Ferguson, 2 volumes. You've gone through those.
Mm-hmm. Now, note for those two, they're both very, very good. Everett Ferguson only wrote the first one.
Okay.
The second one was by 2 authors, Woodbridge and James, wrote the second volume. But both very, very good.
I'm impressed that you remember those names. That's impressive. Okay. So, Church History. I would just say Church History, right? Church History is good. Remember, this is a 50 book list that will give you a great education. Okay, this is one of my favorite history books, How the Irish Saved Civilization. Have you read that?
I've not read that.
Dude, that is such a good book. If you aren't a fan of St. Patrick and Augustine, read that book. Which I was just listening to a lecture on Canon Plus yesterday by Wilkins on the history of the Celts. And the Irish were first Celts.
Yeah.
Like, the Celtic people settled that whole region, and then it kind of went to Celtic Irish, but all good things lead back to the Celts, and the Irish are a precious part of that. Okay, let's do some Native American. You know what? I'm just going to be not politically right. Let's do some good American Indian history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let's do, by the way, you don't sit crisscross applesauce. It's Indian style. 3 Years Among the Comanches by Nelson Lee. Have you read
That's
that?
the book you chose? Yes.
You would have chose the...
I would have chose Under the Summer, or the Empire Under the Summer Moon by...
Which is all about...
the Comanches.
Well, and all about Parker. Quanah Parker? Is that his
Yes,
name?
yeah, but I mean, it's also a history of the Comanches in
All right.
whole. It's not just the...
There you go, folks. Now, my book is really short and sweet.
My
And
book's
it's a
little
first-person account of a true story about a man who was actually taken hostage, became an Indian, and then escaped. So...
Mine has many more stories.
You choose. Was that by...
S.C. Gwine,
Okay, who wrote...
Rebel Yell.
Okay, it's got to be good.
You didn't read that?
The Summer Moon?
Empire in the Summer Moon?
No.
Dang, missed out.
Hey, dude, you didn't read a bunch of these books I've been listing off, man.
You're still missing out.
All right, well, I'll put it on my list. Okay, next I've got this book right here, The War Between the States, America's Uncivil War. It's got Steve Wilkins is an editor, Douglas Wilson is an editor. You know it's got to be great. So if you want to teach your kids the right history of the Civil War, have them read this. Also have them read the Civil Trilogy by Shara, Michael, and Jeff. Is it Shara? Shara, something like
I
that.
don't know how to pronounce the last name.
Movies that were made out of that are Gettysburg and Gods and Generals. Civil War history is great. Any comments on that? Okay. Okay, Amazing Tales for Making Men Out of Boys by Neil Oliver. What about that?
That's an amazing book.
Okay, give us one or two of your favorite tales out of that.
Out of that one, probably The Demons of Cameroon. Demons of Cameroon, The Birkenhead.
Yeah, Birkenhead's got to be in there.
The Pealand Lifeboatman. The whole book is good.
Yeah, it's good.
The
Okay,
whole
so
book is
Amazing
good.
Tales for Making Men Out of Boys by Neil Oliver. Okay, number 10 on history. I think I've been numbering these wrong. Number 10 or number 25, Trial and Triumph. I think if I had to give one introduction book on history, it would be, well, or maybe two. I mean, Trial and Triumph just gives a great overview of the Christian heritage historically. Would you agree with that?
Sure, by viewing Christian figures throughout history.
Yes, by viewing Christian figures, yeah. I mean, you have stories. Every story has a hero.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's very little history you learn that doesn't have people involved. Also, something we could throw on just for extra is Story of the World or Mystery of History. Right?
Those are both good, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so history, good. If I could recommend 3 subjects for you to do in your education or discipleship of your children, it would be history, theology, and literature.
It's all good.
Yeah.
All
Thus,
good subjects.
the first 15 books are literature, the next 10 are history, and the next 10 are theology. Let's talk about theology. All right, number 1. We've got a double number 1. Bondage of the Will by Luther or Orthodoxy by Chesterton. Isaiah's read Bondage of the Will. Have you read Bondage of the Will?
I haven't read either of those.
Okay, I read some of Orthodoxy. Luther, Chesterton, great authors. It's a win-win. All right, next, Vindicae contra Tyrannus, which I have read. Oh, also / Lex Rex. Mm-hmm. So that's all political theology, like how to think right about government. So you have Vindicae contra Tyrannus that was written by the Huguenots, published in 1579, or you have Lex Rex, published by Samuel Rutherford, published, I don't know when.
Probably 1700s.
Yeah,
in
but
England.
great books. Put that on your book list. Is that fair?
Yeah, they're good.
Okay, theology. So theology isn't just about going to heaven when we die. Theology is how to view everything in light of God's word. So there's political theology, there's familial theology, there's church theology, there's every topic, right? There's the market. Theology touches everything. Actually, I'm going to recommend a book in the next list that talks about how everything is spiritual. Okay. Next, we've got Mere Christianity. You read some of that today.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which you could also take that out and just put C.S. Lewis. Read books, fiction, but also nonfiction of C.S. Lewis, which we could have extended our fiction and done, or our classics and done the Space Trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Narnia, of course. Next, okay, so a good play off of Mere Christianity is then to read Mere Christendom by Wilson. Now, I've read that book. You read that book?
I've not read that book.
It's a good book. It's a good book. Dude, you're about to go to his college. You should probably read...
That doesn't mean I have to read all his books.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you couldn't read all of them. There's too many. All right, so Mere Christendom by Wilson is very good. Great after reading Mere Christianity. All right, next, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got Knowledge of the Holy by Tozer. Have you read any of that book?
I haven't read any Tozer.
Okay, well, Tozer's good. The thing I love about Knowledge of the Holy is you can get online for free. Just Google Knowledge of the Holy PDF. And the chapters are short, but they are so... It's like taking... Well, you can't really say taking a shot of theology. Yeah, that's kind of blasphemous. How about eating...
You can.
How about a monster drink? How about a protein shake? How about a thick steak?
Of theology?
Of theology.
How do you go
Anyways...
from taking a shot to a thick steak?
Well, I'm just trying to say you consume a whole lot of theology, a whole lot of amazing, deep thoughts about God in one chapter that's probably 500 words.
So like very nutritious hors d'oeuvres.
That's what I should have said. All right, where are we at? Knowledge of the Holy. Okay, this next one, I'm just going to say a book on victorious eschatology, which there's a book called Victorious Eschatology. There's a book called Paradise Restored by Chilton. You've read books by Kenneth Gentry, haven't you?
I started one.
Like, that are on, do you remember what they're called?
It's Postmillennialism Made Easy. It's in his Theology Made Easy series. And I read some of Victorious Eschatology too.
Yeah, so just a book on having an optimistic view of eschatology. Mm-hmm. So more of a post-mill, a-mill kind of eschatology. All right, guys, we're back. We had little technical issues there. All right, so next we're going on to Willing to Believe by Sproul, which you are currently reading.
Yes, sir.
I think it's the best of Sproul's books because it not only teaches great theology, but it teaches you, it shows you the historical conversation the church has been having for 1,700 years.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Would you recommend any of his other books?
Willing to Believe would be probably top 2 for Sproul for me. Another one that I've actually read was What is Reformed Theology?
Yeah, very good explanation. Fixes up a lot of misunderstandings. All right, next we've got a blank here because this is where you're going to insert a book. So you just got a certificate of theology from Reformation Bible College, R.C. Sproul's school out in Florida, and give us your best theological book, the one that impacted you the most.
The one that impacted me the most. I read so much, I don't really remember what did. For systematic theology, though, since that's what the book seemed moved towards. For systematic theology, I would say my most recommended would be Systematic Theology by Louis Berkhoff. Because it's not big. It's not a big book. Like a lot of systematic theology books are huge. It's
Grudem, yeah.
It's smaller, compact.
Pretty cool, yeah.
He's to the point. He's very good.
All right, so Systematic Theology by
Louis Berkhoff.
Louis Berkhoff. Okay. Next, we've got the Westminster Confession of Faith. Short, sweet, and very insightful of what our forefathers believed. And then we've got, so I've got James White next as an author, and the 2 books I would recommend would be either the KJV Only Controversy, because it really shows, Isaiah's read it twice, I think, he says it shows us how we got our Bible. Teaches you history. That you can trust the Bible we have as the Word of God. And then also Forgotten Trinity.
Forgotten Trinity is good.
Yeah. It's funny because I had a pause when I said you can trust the Bible you have. It depends on the translation.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it's all about. But that's the controversy.
Yeah. And so what he does in that is he shows he gives a good history and also, in our opinion, shows the fallacies in the KJV only claim. That the King James only is the only, because the King James is a great translation, but it's not re-inspired or
it's not re-inspired. It's not the best.
What's your preferred translation? Just as curiosity.
ESV, but I haven't read the King James only controversy. My knowledge of to hold debate between which translation is better, not between the King James and others, but just overall, is very small.
Well, I read out of the Greek and Hebrew.
Oh, we all pick and choose our favorites.
That's a joke. Okay, next we're moving on to 10 books on thinking. So in this, you can make it, I've got economics in here. I've got worldview in here. Okay, so check this out. I heard on Canon Plus a couple weeks ago, I heard a great talk by Doug Wilson that I've been trying to get you guys to listen to. Not working very well. And he really explains what a real education is. And an education... a true education is knowing how to think rightly so you don't get duped by the enemy. Mm-hmm. Like a true education is knowing how to think right so you can follow Christ. And then it stems out into science and history and math and economics and all these kinds of things. But to give your children a worldview that is grounded and that is bulletproof is a big deal. So you'll pick some of that up also. Okay, first we've got Free to Choose by Milton Friedman.
That's a good book. Be careful when you read it. I read it right before I went to bed and had the worst nightmare of my life.
Really?
Yeah, it was terrible. I was, for some reason, part of the world finance community trying to transport gold to different countries to save the economy.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
So just...
Now...
Don't eat bad potatoes before you go to bed. Don't read Milton before you go to bed.
Is that your favorite Friedman book? Have you read others?
Of his?
Yeah.
No, I haven't read others.
Okay,
of his.
but you have some others of his.
I have one other book of his, I think. But
Which one? Do you know what it's called?
Capitalism and Freedom.
Oh, okay.
I think.
So his books would destroy a lot of the socialistic philosophies of today. Okay. Okay. Next we've got the Basic Laws of Human Stupidity. Now you've read that.
I have not read that.
What, dude? It's like a 30-minute. It's like a little. Okay.
I haven't read it.
The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity. I don't know the author. It's a small little square book, and it's probably 3 or 4 inches by 4 inches, and it's short and sweet, half an hour, and it's really good. Teaches you how to think, and it's all about conversations and how to have conversations. Highly recommended. That's why it's on the list. Okay, next, let's go ahead and put Wilson on here. Let's do Rules for Reformers.
Is the rule you can only have one, right?
Well, one on each category. See?
I see.
Okay.
So why is the Lord of the Rings not in one of these categories?
Well, it could be.
You only had the Hobbit in one.
Well, it could be. You could have. Hey, you know what? In thinking, then you could have Tolkien's writing on a fairy. What's his thing on?
Essay on fairy tales.
Yeah. Is it fairy? I think it's fairy stories.
Probably is fairy stories.
Essay on fairy stories. So you could put that in too.
It's a good essay.
Yeah.
Recommend.
All right.
Book 51.
All right. Book 51. Okay, next.
Essay
okay,
on
so
fairy tales.
Okay, so we did Free to Choose, Basic Laws of Human Stupidity, Rules for Reformers. Okay, Masculine Christianity. You have not read this book.
Did we just skip over what Rules for Reformers is all about?
Oh, okay, let's talk about Rules for Reformers.
That's a really good book.
Yeah, have you read it?
I've read.
Yeah, okay, so it's a play off of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. Mm-hmm. And it's really good. If you could recommend only one Doug Wilson book.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
He has a lot of good books.
He does.
1,000 Generations is good. Raising Men, or no, what's his?
Future Men.
Future Men is good. Rules for Reformers is good.
Yeah, they're all good. Okay, let's move on. Okay, Masculine Christianity. Thick book. I can't remember the author's name. The audio of it's on Canon Plus. I've read it. And when I say I read things, usually it's listening, but I'm just going to, hey, dude, I read it in my mind. And I would highly recommend it because it defends the headship of family, church, and state. I mean, it defends the order of God's kingdom. All right, next we've got Man of the House by C.R. Wiley. Have you read that?
I've not.
Dang, dude, you got a lot of reading to do before you leave in a couple months.
I'm chilling.
Man of the House by C.R. Wiley. Why is that on here? Because you need to have books that teach family. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah,
You need to have books that think rightly about family. So I've got that book, and the next one is The Family by by J.R. Miller, 1882, which was originally published Homemaking. You know that white book?
Oh, yeah.
So what two books would you do, or one book on family? Can you think of any books on family? Future Men is one.
The only other one on family I think I've read would be it's a Wilson book. It's another Doug Wilson book.
Reforming Marriage.
No, it's it's his book.
Oh, Standing on the Promises.
No.
Children
I
Matter.
read that. Yeah, that one.
Children Matter.
That was good.
There you go. So put one. I mean, family is kind of the great omission in the church today. We don't train our children on how to have good marriages and how to raise our grandchildren. It's a really big deal. So put some books on there about it. All right, next. Okay, this one I got to give some disclaimers. The title can turn people off, but it shouldn't. It's called Lectures on Calvinism by Kuyper. Now, you've read that, or some of them.
I started it.
Okay, well, did you read the first lecture?
I think I did.
Dang.
I think I did.
I thought it was assigned. Anyways.
I think I got like 1.5 through.
Parents, it's not only assigning the right books, but it's following up and making sure they're read. But what's great about this book, the title can be misleading because people think, oh, it's going to be all about the debate about election. But it's actually more about how Christians should think about this world and about living life. And the main premise of it is that this world belongs to God. We don't need to retreat. This is kind of the cure for Anabaptism, which I love Anabaptists. I love Amish, Mennonites, Hutterites. I've got friends. I go visit them. But their interpretation of Scripture is to kind of cluster and let the world do its own thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas what Kuyper was arguing, and these are lectures that he gave. He was the Prime Minister of Holland. He gave these lectures around 1901 at Princeton. And it was basically about how one of his most famous quotes is, there isn't 1 square inch of creation where God, who is Lord over all, doesn't say mine. So Christians need to redeem the arts. We need to redeem education, science, literature, government, the market, business, morality, whatever it is. Right?
For sure.
So would you say worth having on a list?
Yeah. It's good. What I read of it
at least the
good.
First half of the first chapter, yeah, was good. Okay, next we've got the fallacy detective.
No, that's true.
What?
Well, we can't do another Doug Wilson book.
Yeah, otherwise
his book
you
is
would
better.
His book. Well, yeah, it's better, but it's a little long. I mean, it's a more extended. Like there's like 30 to 50 fallacies instead of just the main 12 to 15 that the fallacy detective does.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but teaching fallacies,
mm-hmm.
right? Okay, so have a book where your children learn things like what is a red herring, what is ad hominem, straw man fallacy. Give me another one.
They're all Latin phrases that I can't pronounce.
Okay. All right, next, 44, we've got an author named Harvey Newcomb. He published these around 1850. He wrote a book called How to Be a Man, How to Be a Lady. Here's the book, How to Be a Lady. I'm going to read an excerpt.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay,
Sure.
Page 24. Let's see. So this is a chapter called Filial Piety, which means how daughters should treat their parents. And there's chapters on attitude during family worship, attitude at the meal table, attitude in conversation. Like historically, we used to teach our children how to have conversations as men and women. Mm-hmm. Is that needed today?
Probably.
Yeah, big time. Filial piety is a great influence on future character. One who has never been in the habit of submitting to others will always be headstrong and self-willed. And such a character nobody loves. You cannot always do as you please. And if such is your disposition, you will always be unhappy when your will is crossed. You will be unwilling to submit to necessary restraints, and this will irritate and keep you in misery. And it goes on, and it says, therefore, if then you would be respectable, beloved, and happy, when you grow up and take your place in society, you must honor your parents. And he goes on to talk about it. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
that's pretty sweet. And every page has good stuff like that. Older books are better sometimes.
This is true.
Okay, last, the Boniface option. I had you read the first chapter or the preface, introduction. Yeah, was it good?
It was good.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend the Boniface option. Once again, it's all about taking dominion. Instead of Christians sitting on the sidelines watching the world go to hell in a handbasket, why don't we do what Jesus said and disciple the nations? Yeah,
there you go.
Maybe we have weapons that can demolish strongholds. Maybe we're the light of the world. Slight sarcasm. All right, so those are 10 books on
Just
thinking.
Slight though.
Do you have any books off the top of your head that you want to throw in there on thinking? Or
Not that
any
I can remember
topics?
off the top of
Yeah,
my
I
head.
know. That's kind of like throwing it at you. All right, dude. We're going to wrap this up with a pretty bow. We're at about 36 minutes. We're going to talk about 5 autobiographies. Okay. First one, Augustine's Confessions.
Good.
You've read those.
The vast majority of it.
Yeah. All right. Next, we've got Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford. I would read at least the first quarter of it, which is their story of all their hardships. Basically, it's the story of them coming over here in the first few years here. I think that's the most important part of the story.
That's only the first quarter?
If that, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Next, George Mueller autobiography. A teacher that we greatly respect named Paul Washer said that book changed his life. I own it, but I haven't read it. Most of the books I own, I haven't read because I own about 4,000 books.
Yes.
No.
It's a lot of them.
All right, next we've got 2 options. They're both by Metaxas. So this is an author, Eric Metaxas. Luther Bonhoeffer. I've read 90% of Bonhoeffer, and I've read at least 70% of Luther. My only criticism of Metaxas is his books are really long.
He's just good at his job.
Yeah, he's good at his job. I mean, it's thorough. And lastly, I did this audiobook. It's incredible. Isaiah's read this book at least twice, if not thrice. That is Rebel Yell by
S.C. Gwine.
S.C. Gwine, which is a Texan. He's out of Austin.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There you go. He's 37 miles that way, as the crow flies. All right, so that is an example of, I think, a pretty dang good 50-book book list.
Yeah, it's good.
So the principles are come up with categories of books, and look at classics, look at works of theology, history. Jared, do you have any other wisdom? This is a book. We have a book club. We don't know the name of it, but it's got to be really special. So I'm going to give you the last word. On the fly, on the spot.
Just here now.
No, right now, last word. Which it can be more than one word. That means last.
Yeah.
Yeah, close it out.
Mm-hmm.
Land the plane.
For sure. In times such as these, we need to read so we can learn. So it's like Gandalf said. You do the Gandalf quote. About time.
I wish none of this would have happened to me. So do all who live to see such times, but that's not for us to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time given to us.
All I have to do is decide to read or not to read with the books that are given you.
That is the question.
That is the question.
I was almost laughing because I thought you were being silly at first. It sounded like you were reading a teleprompter or something, so I thought it was one of your quotes that you do of who knows what. All right, friends. Well, Jared and Jared 1, Jared 2, thank you so much for your time. Books rock. Give your kids a love for reading. Give them the right books. Give yourself a love for reading. Develop a love for reading. Get the right books, and you will truly be blessed. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.